And they failed anyway.
Yeah, you know, so,
Yeah, I think the only one is the I-420.
yeah. So we'll revisit that next time when Chuck is present.
What?
Yeah, just put that up.
Put it on the next agenda.
So I move to table this until next time, is that okay?
Yep.
Okay.
Do I have a second for that?
Second.
All in favor of tabling this for when Chuck's here? Say aye. Any opposed? So, all in favor?
We're all voting for that.
All right, it is time for public presentations. I didn't give a list.
I know I'm wasting my time. Oh, well, you can have a microphone over there. I would do that one. What's that? You need to hold on.
I need to say.
I want to remind the public about the expectations of public comment. I also want to start enforcing that there will be no clapping after they're speaking to the board. And this is not a popularity contest. And if there's a new clapping, we'll just end public comment at that time. So, Gail Cruz, you're first.
Hello? Okay. Thank you for letting us speak tonight. We thank the county commissioners for being here too. The book I'm going to review a little bit today is called Crank, yet another one by Ellen Hopkins. And this book is dedicated, if you don't know what crank is, some of you may not, it's methamphetamine, it's just a street name for meth. And this book by Ellen Hopkins is dedicated to the use of crank, the characters, methamphetamine in every form, and the very risky behaviors that result from meth addiction. Also, this book is rife with the use of underage alcohol and other drugs, explicit graphic sex scenes including rape, group sex. Sex is reduced to animalistic couplings fueled by drugs and alcohol. Self-harm and drinking blood, that's a new one for me. Profanity, abuse of other human beings, and the book ends with no real conclusion, just sort of like, well, life happens, oh well. And I, for the first time, I'm going to do some excerpts. I'm at a disadvantage because I cannot read pornography out loud, so there's none of the explicit, graphic, excruciatingly detailed sex scenes. I will not read those. But this is bad enough. This is page 113 in the book. I think this bitch has been cranking. That was license enough. Bodies bumped, pushed me into the door, blocked. Ever done a threefer? And the reason I'm not pausing is there's very little, if any, punctuation, because that's the way it is. Okay, page 402. This one really disturbs me, especially for young women, young girls. I started cranking to keep up with schoolwork, around gymnastics, cheerleading, student body council, and other extracurricular crap. Hope my niece doesn't read this. Page 437. This has to do with self-harm and then drinking blood. Don't know whose blade it was, whose idea it was. I don't remember saying yes. I know I didn't say no. The knife was sharp, one nick at my wrist. It didn't even hurt. It didn't seem wrong. Rust in my mouth, rich, red, salt. I drank it down, asked for more. Offered my own to those who would partake. Fever, fire. I was on fire. Wholesome. So my big concern is the children that are reading these are not necessarily reading it with any kind of parental guidance. And is that it? Okay. So thank you.
if there's anybody new, we have this timer here, and it gives you a warning, and then the second time you hear it is when your time is up. The third time? Third time, okay. DB Worthington?
Commissioners, Board, I'm D.B. Worthington.
Yeah, okay.
I would like to begin by quoting from the news record what the Liberty Council out of Florida had to say. The same council, this board, had to go all the way across the United States to support their position. And I quote, "The proposed changes include a new policy to protect minors from sexually explicit materials and would not allow for sexual education books to be in the library, no matter what section." My mother gave me a book when I started puberty. Let me repeat that. My mother gave me a book when I started puberty, complete with illustrations of male and female genitalia. My mother was a devout Christian woman and an Arian. She was trying to educate me, a teen, with a book. Lots of teens don't have parents who would do that and yet you want to get rid of or move these books from the teen section of the public, I repeat, public library because you don't agree with it. Well, I don't agree with you. I keep telling myself, you people are my neighbors. Some of you are my friends, but I have difficulty understanding why you think it's okay to walk into an establishment that was just voted most outstanding in the state of Wyoming and totally rip it apart. You don't agree with the National Association, the State Association, the mission statement, the way books are chosen, the way books are discarded, or where books are placed. And you've had to go all the way to Florida to find legal counsel for support. Well, I say to you, don't Florida my Wyoming. Now I'd like to address the red shirts from the last month. I walked in and all I saw were brown shirts worn by the SA, the stormtroopers and bullies of Hitler's Nazi Party, led by Ernest Rowan in Germany. I saw the black shirts representing Benito Mussolini and his fascist party, the bullies of Italy. And now we have the red shirts, led by the new library board of Campbell County Public Library, who make almost every vote 4-1. Hang in there, Charlie. Lastly, I've never heard if the board ever contacted WLA as to why this library was chosen outstanding library in the state. Did you ever do that? Well, if you didn't, Terry, I think what you said to Terry was accusatory instead of congratulatory. I personally consider that bullying.
Ann Hardesty? Lyle Austin?
Thank you for the chance to visit with you. I've had some people in the community that are aware of the fact that I do a jail ministry, and I've done it for a better part of a decade, and I get in front of teenagers that are in juvenile detention. You can't hear me? Can you now? Okay. Have to hold the mic closer. Anyway, I get in front of teenagers that are in juvenile detention for various charges. And of course, we get into moral issues and legal issues, and we talk about Christ and salvation. And a lot of these teenagers come from very dysfunctional families. And a lot of them are looking for answers, and I ask them what they actually think about the books and literature that's in the library. And one young man, a 16-year-old, came to juvenile detention from the Yes House. And he said, well, there was a book that I got from the library. And it said that if I did this stuff, I would enjoy it, and it's okay. So I met a 16-year-old girl that came into the Yes House, and we got to liking each other. And he said, we tried it because it was okay. The book said so. And we got caught. And then we were told it's not okay. So it was very confusing. So if you do it again, you're going to get in trouble. Well, we got caught a second time. He said we were informed that we wouldn't be at the S House anymore if it continued. And he said, honest, I swear, all I did was touch her back. I'm in juvenile detention now, and she got shipped off to girls' school. But you don't understand, we were told it was okay in that publication. So I'm really confused. What is okay? What isn't okay? 3 minutes are up already. Wow. Anyway, that's the story I wanted to tell you.
That's your warning.
I can't get into the next one because it's a bit longer, so I'll leave it at that.
Beth Stevens?
It was an error.
Okay. Dean Bonhoff.
Thank you, Dean Vomhoff, and I just wanted to talk a little bit about hate groups. We've heard a lot about Southern Poverty Law and how they pointed out different hate groups. Latest, a new $90 million Atlanta Police and Fire Training Center, along with construction equipment, was set ablaze by fire bombs and fireworks and throwing bricks and other objects. One arrested was Thomas Jurgen, who is a staff attorney for Southern Poverty Law. He was charged with domestic terrorism. The spokesman for Southern Poverty Law said he stands behind his actions. Interesting, this is the same organization that our board member said spoke to the Wyoming bar. No wonder Miss Bear had to go out of the state to find a law-abiding attorney to represent the library board. I attended a county commissioners meeting March 7th. The opposition stated that the library, or the Liberty Council and Mass Resistance are both hate groups in her opinion. I can tell you what a hate group is, not so much what they say, but what they do. Like trampling my political signs, putting anonymous hate mail in my mailbox, vandalizing a local church. Then the leader of the LGBT group hides behind the name Director of Wyoming Equality, Sarah Burlingame, comes to Gillette in December to plan a strategy to push out two of our most popular commissioners. But that isn't the first time she was here. She was here to plan the strategy behind the church vandalism. But that still isn't enough. She goes to the state legislators in January to advocate for sexual mutilation of children that still believe in Santa Claus and the Tooth Fairy. This is child abuse. Then she claims this is suicide prevention. How ridiculous. I can hear the conversation. How's it going, Joe? I heard you were having some head problems. My counselor says I'm doing great now. Now, why? What'd you do? Oh, I whacked off my willy. You did what? Yeah, I cut off my penis. Really? Well, that wasn't the head issue I was talking about, but whatever makes you feel good. What, any side effects? And how do you feel about this? Well, personally, I feel I got the short end of the stick. I hang out at the gym and they all call me Stubby. But you ought to hear the diet they have. You lose 20 to 30 pounds overnight. Really? Tell me about it. It's called the limbs-free diet. You cut off your arm or your leg and you're down 20 to 30 pounds instantly. And the greatest thing is, my counselor says, you get to decide whether you want a top or a bottom surgery. I have to go see my counselor now. Would you get the door for me? You know I only have one arm now. Sure, Joe. By the way, what's this organization called and how do I get a hold of them? Oh, it's called Wyoming Equality and their phone number is 1-800-INSANE. You board members are doing a fantastic job and you folks that call yourself woke need to woke up.
I did anyway. That was good.
I was outside.
No, I think we should let people talk.
Warning. No clapping. Dallas, Remy?
I wish there was a way to quantify the amount of time and energy everybody on all sides of this issue has spent, but there isn't. That energy has become a sunk cost because this new policy doesn't provide any benefit that's worth that energy. This new policy seeks to protect minors from a harm that doesn't exist. Not a single book being objected to has met the criteria outlined in the state obscenity statute to be considered obscene. The only benefit I can find in this policy is that a few people get to pat themselves on the back for supposedly vanquishing some boogeyman. And the cost is that an entire group of individuals' First Amendment rights get infringed upon, a cost that far outweighs the benefit. And some continue to argue that if those people are minors, they never had the right to free speech to begin with. I'd argue that minors do have the right to free speech, and this opinion is backed up by the Supreme Court case of Tinker v. Des Moines. But that's just legally speaking. What about philosophically? I think we should reflect upon our history and our founding fathers and ask, are you working to advance the just cause they fought for, or are you working against it? And with regard to the discussion about who has free speech, who is entitled to it, this historic quote from the New England Current stands out to me. Without freedom of thought, there can be no such thing as wisdom, and no such thing as public liberty without freedom of speech, which is the right of every man, as far by it he does not hurt or control the right of another. And this is the only check it ought to suffer, and the only bounds it ought to know. The sacred privilege is so essential to free governments that the security of property and freedom of speech always go together. In those wretched countries where a man cannot call his tongue his own, he can scarce call anything else his own. Whoever would overthrow the liberty of a nation must begin by subduing the freeness of speech, a thing terrible to public traitors. This was written on July 9th, 1722, by a young Benjamin Franklin. When I say a young Benjamin Franklin, I mean he was 16 years old when he wrote that. Now here we are, 300 years later, discussing whether or not all citizens are entitled to the right of free speech.
Thank you. Priscilla Hickson?
Hello, my name is Priscilla Hickson, and I'm kind of going to address this idea of hate also. We hear that word thrown around a lot, and they're saying they call mass resistance a hate organization. But just for your information, I use lots of organizations besides mass resistance, but I do get some information out of there, such as the Safe Libraries, Fox News, American Foundation for Suicide Prevention, AMA, NIH. We do not depend on mass resistance for anything, and by calling that group a hate group, they're using an ad hominem definition or a use for their argument when they can't address the issues. What I really want to talk about today, which my time's about gone now, this last week, well, we're supposedly not part of the ALA anymore, but this last week I downloaded this out of our library website. On here is the top 10 most challenged books of 2021 by the American Library Association. So we're not quite separated from them yet. On this list are about 10 books. Half of them are youth adult ones, and the others are not. But then what our library has on here, Campbell County Library does not ban books, but by what you can do for these banned books is to read them. So they are telling our young people, our teens, to read these books. And I'm telling you, some of these are adult books that are not good. So I guess what I want to really take some time to do, we're calling mass resistance a hate group, but the ALA now is part of us. We're going to have some training with this for this summer. So I wanted just to read some of the comments by Emily. These are quotes. These are not something that I'm making up. When she was running for president of the ALA, one of her campaign speeches is this, I quote, "For environmental sustainability, collective organizing to crush parents who dare to protect their children from woke ideologies in regard to equity and action." And she is the one that won. It's an online, they voted online for her. And she has, you know something, I'm not gonna make it here. So she has YouTube videos to train librarians how to subvert and inject hard left politics and sexuality in their publicly funded work. Well, to be continued next time.
Thank you. Cheryl Blumhoff.
Cheryl Baumhoff. In their new book, Stolen Youth, Bethany Mandel and Carol Merkowitz are inclusive in the institutions they critique, all focus on the area of libraries. Page 108. Once upon a time, libraries didn't take political positions or stances. They just existed to provide every possible literary perspective to patrons. They would stock books that were not just your standard children's classics, but also material from the left and right, and maintained a neutral stance on that content. Those days are over, and the end came right from the top of the profession. I think the most egregious example of this trend is the 2021 American Library Association resolution to condemn white supremacy and fascism as antithetical to library work, which was adopted by the ALA Council. It proposes that the profession forsakes one of its core values, neutrality, and directs the subcommittee to come up with new language to replace it. What are the core values of the ALA? It isn't exposing patrons to challenging ideas and quality literature or providing a vital public service. It's a certain kind of activism. However, my source continued, a close reading of the document shows a proposition that none of the 5 sources it cites in the opening paragraph actually support the proposition that neutrality buttresses or enables white supremacy. In fact, one of the articles by Claire Knowles, a member of the ALA's Black Caucus, actually defends neutrality. Myself and some of my colleagues are appalled that the council could adopt something this shoddily researched and argued. Page 109. In the spring of 2022, a self-proclaimed lesbian Marxist, Emily Drabinski, was elected president of the ALA. In her vision for the ALA that led to her election, she wrote, "The consequences of decades of unchecked climate change, class war, white supremacy, and imperialism have led us here. If we want a world that includes public goods like the library, we must organize our collective power and wield it." Mombian, a site for lesbian moms, highlighted more of Drabinski's background. Her scholarship has included work on applying queer theory to library cataloging and library spaces, including a 2014 paper in which she critiqued how gender is identified in library cataloging rules. In its last in-person conference before the onset of COVID-19, the ALA devoted a full third of its programming to woke content, according to journalist Joy Pullman. She explained that the conference featured more than 100 workshops with an equity, diversity, and inclusion theme addressing race and gender. She writes, that included workshops with these titles: creating queer, inclusive elementary school library programming, develop an online face for lesbian pulp fiction collection, and telling stories, expanding boundaries such as drag queen story time in libraries. One of the slides informed attendees that talking with kids about race is essential work and we should all be engaging in that. We live in a country built on white supremacy. I'll stop here and I'd be happy to donate a copy of this book to the library. Thank you.
Thank you. Hugh Bennett.
Good evening. My name's Hugh Bennett, and I have a... Can you hear me okay? No.
Hi, I'm Hugh Bennett, and I have an excerpt from one of the books that's fit for the children, according to some people's thinking. But I won't read about it because that would put it in my mind, and I like to control what I put into my mind, and I'm in my 60s. I think a society that protects pornography and perversion under the guise of free speech, instead of protecting young women and children from exposure to stuff that's detrimental to them, will not last. I think our society's been under attack for years. I think the last 3 years has shown us how bad it can get on the national level. Reform of a problem like we face in America today starts from the bottom up. Corruption comes from the top down. Free speech is not, nor should it ever be, free porn for minors. If minors cannot purchase it legally at a bookstore, why on earth should our tax dollars buy it for them and make it available, circumventing the parental control that's natural? They shouldn't. It's up to parents. Some people have said it should always be up to the parent what their kids are exposed to, and that if they're okay with their kids coming into the library and getting that material, that's cool. That's sidestepping the issue. If it's the parents' decision, let the parents make it happen for the kids. Let them go to the adult bookstore and bring the pornography home for their kids. I don't want tax dollars taken out of my bank account going to make it possible to pervert kids. It has nothing to do with free speech. If we're a responsible society and intend to be here for our grandchildren, it seems to me fitting that we should protect their minds until they're developmentally and physically able to comprehend the concepts involved with sex and pornography. Thanks for hearing me out. Thanks for defending the rights of children.
Thank you. Cheryl Barton.
Hello, thank you for giving me an opportunity to speak again. I read a little bit on the website about your proposed collection policy that says no materials added to any genre or portion of the library's collections can include any picture, photograph, drawing, etc., 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 of a person or portion of a human body which depicts nudity or sexual, etc., 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 etc. I'm not going to read an excerpt from a book. This evening I'm going to read a whole book. It's called The Bare Naked Book. And yes, he is looking at his little pee-pee. Bodies, bodies, big and small, short and tall, young and old, everybody is different. Hair dripping, braided, curly, straight on heads and faces and other places. Where is your hair?
Cheryl, you're supposed to be talking to us, so we should be seeing the pictures. Thank you.
Check out the book. Eyes that see and eyes that are blind, crying, winking. Where are your eyes? Noses that smell and noses too plugged. Can you blow your nose? Where's your nose? Ears that hear and ears that are deaf. Droopy, sparkly. Where are your ears? Teeth. Biting, wiggling, being brushed. Teeth with braces. Where are your teeth? Tongues, licking, slurping, candy colored. Can you see yours? Where is your tongue? Shoulders, hiding in a gown, riding shoulders up and down. Where are your shoulders? Arms, swimming, brimming, swinging, flinging, shoving, loving. Where are your arms? Hands, washing, holding, clapping, folding, dining, signing. Where are your hands? Fingers, squeezing, poking, getting pinched, and making music. Where are your fingers? Chests and breasts, oh dear. With hair, with milk, and nipples like buttons. Where are your nipples? Navels that go out, navels that go in. With rings and things. Where is your navel? Genitals. Different people have different kinds. Whatever you call, whatever you have, your genitals belong to you. Where are your genitals? And yes, there is a picture of a boy and a girl that are naked. Bum, standing up, sitting down. Remember, please, to wipe and wash your hands. Where is your bum? Legs, running, Mary, hurting, Harry, so many legs. Where are your legs? Knees, together apart with a scrape, yow, coming and going, all better now. Where are your knees? Skin, all over you and all over me. Soaking wet, bare naked skin. Where is your skin? They're in bathing suits. Insides, gurgling tummy, thumping heart. Where happy and sad live under every part. Where are your insides? Bodies, bodies, to love and to celebrate. So many wonderful bodies. That's the end. This is a book that I think is necessary in our library. There's nothing wrong with this. I don't like that your policy says that this kind of book won't be in the library. It's a crying shame.
Thank you. Ed Sisti.
Madam Chair and Board, I believe you're on the right track. I appreciate what you're doing, especially after what we just heard. I have a book in front of me, Tricks by Eileen Hopkins. I'm going to read from page 97, which I don't normally do, but I will today. It's an 825-page book. Booklooks.com, outside of our library, calls it explicit sexual activities, including child rape, abuse, drug abuse, alcohol use, and adult child prostitution. Our Campbell County Library on the website, the teaser for the book is 5 Troubled Teenagers Fall into Prostitution. Search for freedom, safety, community, family, and love. I'll cut some of this out. Tricks is a book that turns you on and repels you at the same time. So much like life. I think the overall life lesson in this book was, it says it over and over again, you can have sex with anyone as long as you have good bud. Well, I didn't know what good bud was. In my day and age, good bud was, you know, that stuff they advertise on the Super Bowl. This one's for you. Bud's a little different today. It's marijuana. Wow. Good bud, you can have all the sex you want. This is what we're teaching our kiddos. Page 97, Eve in this book, I'll get the heterosexual couple so I won't be accused of something else. The heterosexual couple in the book, Eve says, my hand disguised as Andrew's hand moves down my neck, over the collarbone, breastbone, goosebumps rise in unusual places. My body tingles in a completely foreign way because of Andrew, but he's not here. I pretend he is, and I let his hands explore it. The rounds of my breasts move in tighter and tighter orbits. Now fingers circle the heart center nubs, raised like it's cold in here. It's not, I'm burning up, delirious with raw need. My hand wants to slide lower to a place I know nothing about, except what they call it in the books. In the books. The author says it right there, of the books that we have on our shelf, that you get that knowledge from the books. And suddenly it comes to me how completely inept it will be when Andrew and I finally share that warm bed together. I turn on the light, go to my computer, avoid looking at the Calvary screensaver, which has a picture of Jesus on it. Mama put that on my computer because she knew I was going to go to the internet and explore what I have on my mind. Disapproval of the parent there. All right, so the amount of time that we have spent has been worth it. Thank you.
Thank you. Deb Proctor.
CCPL and its staff have been very successful providing our community with a wide range of information and programs for all citizens. This work continues despite the distraction of a vocal few who would like their ideologies and religion to determine the parameters of all materials. Eisenhower stated, "The libraries of America are and must remain the home of free and inquiring minds. Our citizens of all ages and races, of all creeds and persuasions, must be able to turn with clear confidence that they can freely seek the whole truth in the library. With the recent attention to the collection development policy, I would like to ask if you truly remember the words added to your mission statement in October, reflecting community standards. How can one sincerely and with a straight face say that these words are being followed when the chair has invited and allowed an individual and a group from Florida to submit collection development guideline changes? It seems quite hypocritical and a lie. The beauty of a public library, each taxpayer contributes a small amount of dollars to have access to a large variety of materials. Our library receives about 2.8% of the county budget. Someone owning property in Chara Hills might pay about $83 to fund the library, while in Heritage Village $28 or in Sage Bluffs $34, or in my case $36. I suspect that those who've objected to their tax money purchasing a certain book would find purchases which reflect their religious, business, political views, or maybe even a fiction book that warms their heart. Being involved in libraries for most of my life, I do not know of one library book that's caused a major permanent harm to youth. But I do know that issues like cyberbullying, phone sexting, drugs, adult abusers, lack of mental health services, and more have been devastating to our children and our youth. I suggest it's time to really protect them by finding a way to address these real issues instead of the imagined crisis of a page in a public library book. Thank you.
Thank you. Susan Sistine?
Madam Chair, I owe you an apology. I was obviously the only person that stepped out of the room when you asked us not to clap. So I apologize. Is it on?
How's that? Okay, Priscilla took a little bit of my comment. What I wanted to talk about was something I found on the Eat, Read, and Repeat teen section on Banned Books Weeks, because it does say, what do you do about it? You read them. And if you need help, you talk to a librarian, and they will help you find the book. The problem is that the books referenced here on the following page are some of the worst. It's genderqueer, which is graphic. It has pages full of sex toys. It's just so graphic. All boys aren't blue, sexually explicit. And when I say that, these books are so vulgar. I have some sections of them, I can't even read it. I mean, it's the most vulgar stuff you could ever read. The Hate You Give, I read that book. It's just a hateful book on race baiting. Me, Earl, and the Dying Girl, I have that. I can't read it to you. It's so vile. I will give it to you, and I do hope some of the commissioners will take a look at this. Please, so you know what the issues are, because freedom of speech is not giving our children pornography. And this book is so vile. He brags about having 20 women's anatomies lined up. And then the bluest eye is beyond disgusting. They talk about beating up a white woman to leave red marks on her body, destroying white baby dolls. There's all types of racial stuff in here. Killing an animal by swinging it around. And it goes on and on. Drinking, incest, on and on. And so the librarians are going to direct the children to books like that. That's what I have a problem with. I love this library. I used to bring my grandkids here. And I didn't see this type material back then, but now it's different. And also, I've recommended several sex education books. All were denied. One is called Waiting and Dating by Miles Monroe, which would have been awesome. But this is just wrong to recommend this to children. And I went into the library very quickly and found this book, and I'll just touch on it a little bit. It's got a page that advocates for the girls to make a Christmas decoration that looks like their private parts. And I'm just asking you, why do we have employees
ordering this kind of stuff? Why? There's so many good books. I think we have an employee problem. I hope you'll look into who ordered this. I can get a copy of it for you, because it's just so disgraceful. And our library deserves better. The people in Campbell County deserve better. Thank you.
Thank you. Rebecca West?
Thank you very much for listening to your public. I would like to talk a little bit about Teddy Roosevelt. Teddy.
With the mic closer.
Okay. Teddy Roosevelt was our 26th president from 1901 to 1909. He had a cattle ranch in North Dakota. And in fact, North Dakota is building a presidential library for Teddy Roosevelt. That's why I thought this was relevant at a library board meeting, right? A couple interesting things. He was an amazing human being. He is the one who decided that Executive Mansion in Washington, D.C. should be called the White House. And because he was an avid hunter who refused to shoot a bear cub on a hunt, an entrepreneur decided to make a bear and call it a teddy bear. So we probably all have a reminder of President Roosevelt somewhere in our house. He was very articulate, and I would like to read part of a speech that he gave. It was entitled Citizenship in a Republic, delivered in Paris, France, April of 1910. The man in the arena. It is not the critic who counts, not the man who points out how the strong man stumbles or where the doer of deeds could have done them better. The credit belongs to the man who is actually in the arena, whose face is marked by dust and sweat and blood, who strives valiantly, who errs and comes short again and again, because there is no effort without error and shortcoming, but who does actually strive to do the deeds, who knows the great enthusiasms, the great devotions, who spends himself in a worthy cause, who at the best knows in the end the triumph of high achievement, and who at the worst, if he fails, at least fails while daring greatly, so that his place shall never be with those cold and timid souls who know neither victory nor defeat. I just want to thank the hospital board, or excuse me, the library board, for being in the arena.
Thank you. Casey Cook?
Good evening. First off, I just want to straighten out the record a little bit. It's anyone who disagrees with me that's literally Hitler, for the record, unless they're Mussolini. So the purpose of any public entity is of course the public good. You know, we have a road and bridge department, and the purpose of the road and bridge department is to help us get from one place to another. The purpose of the library is not just to peddle books. That could be potentially terrible. The purpose of the public library, like any other public entity, is to improve the public good. The library, if you will, is into idea sales. every author sells ideas. That's ultimately what they're doing. I submit to you that we can agree on a number of things that are not public goods in any sense. Sexual promiscuity in any form is not a public good. That is a public problem, which actually causes demonstrable harms. Drug use. This is not a public good. General degeneracy. If you gaze into the gutter, you're likely to land there. Some of the stuff we've got in here is the vilest of the gutter. Why? Let's give our young people something noble and good to gaze upon. And one other thing I want to point out was that the idea of free speech keeps coming up. Nobody is restricting anybody's speech here. What gets purchased with my taxpayer dollars by the library is in fact compelled speech. That's speech that I'm compelled to make. And again, obviously we can't all agree on everything that could possibly be in the library, but we can agree on some common sense things, and I thank you for moving that direction.
Thank you.
Madam Chairman, I had crossed my name off. Could I reconsider to speak? Because I wasn't sure if I'd be able to do that in videotape.
Have you already passed your name?
Huh? It was
Okay. Lisa Malis? Miles. It's all crossed out.
Can you hear me back there? Can you hear me now?
Closer.
How about that? Okay. What I've just given each library board member is information regarding my library card user date, created when CCPL began using the current computerized library card system. If you look carefully, you can see my user date created on the current system and the last date of activity when I asked for this form. Since then, yesterday I checked out another $3, so that's not up to date. As an act of transparency, I've shown you proof. I'm requesting at the next board meeting, each board member show proof of when their library card was created. I would like verification that each board member was a card-carrying patron when they were either appointed or they applied. Appointed would be great with me. I want to know when the last time each board member checked out a book. Frequency does matter. If you had a card at the time of the board appointment, it indicates the following. 1, you're invested in the library as a provider of information for all patrons. Number 2, you took the time to familiarize yourself with the library by perusing various departments. Number 3, you took time to engage with various staff members when requiring assistance, asking for options on types of programs offered to people of all ages, and most important, personal interaction with the staff. My hunch is that someone on this board may not have had a library card until after being appointed, which indicates to me a failure to be truly invested in both their position, but most importantly, the library. Remember, I showed you mine, now you show me yours.
Thank you. That is everyone. All right.
I did. Oh, I prefer.